You're listening to More Than Reports, and I'm your host, Paul B. Felix.
This is the 5th episode in our data architecture series, and today we are talking about data warehouses. This discussion focuses on what business leaders need to know. We simply explain why data warehouses matter to growing businesses.
Hey, Paul. So today we're still talking about data architectures. This is the 5th time we do that, so it has to be something important for the work we do. We got on this path when we realized that it's not a straight line. I love that image. The idea that you go in a steady progress, one step to the next. There's most things technology. There's a lot of possibilities in different ways to skin the proverbial cat. It's not different for data architectures. So if we're building a solution, a framework, a structure that will support our business in the long term. There are so many ways to go about it. We talked about the simplest ways. You can just go into your system of record reports, get data out of it, produce reports, and start managing the business that way. We talked about staging areas. We talked about ODSs, persistent staging areas. But today, I think we're getting to our climax. I feel that way. There's all this. There's so much that we talk about data warehouses, and so much literature and knowledge, and people. There's cloud data warehouses. There's a category in technology, right? So it's got to be something important. So I'm happy we're getting to that point in our discussions. So I'll get us started with a very simple question: What is? What do you think defines a data warehouse?
Yeah. Well, like most things in technology, it kind of depends on who you ask here. Some
Right.
people will call pretty much anything a data warehouse. So I'm going to give my opinion since it's our podcast, right? So I'll give my opinion what a data warehouse is. A data warehouse is a data structure. It's stored in a database, and it is designed specifically for the purpose of supporting business intelligence workloads. Or analytics, we can just say, which means it's often subject oriented. We're building something, for example, to support the sales needs. We're building something to support operations needs. We're building something to support marketing and so on. So it's often subject oriented. It's going to use terms or nomenclature that are familiar to the business, right? We're not going to use cryptic wording like you might find in a transactional system or your business application database. We're going to use words that make sense to the business because we want this data structure or data architecture to be easy to navigate for the end user. A data warehouse is trying to create a foundation that can be expanded upon, right? So that we'll probably talk about the techniques in a bit here, but one of the things that I believe differentiates a database or a data warehouse from an operational data store is it is that foundation. You can extend it without throwing things away and rebuilding them. There's design techniques involved on how you build these solutions so that they are able to grow with your business. That's a few characteristics of a data warehouse.
Interesting. So in technology, things that last long tend to evolve. Um, I'm really curious to get your take on people would say literature, but there's this knowledge around it, and people that write books, for example, and teach courses and teach methods. How did this evolve? I mean, I've been listening or hearing about listening to people talk and hearing about data warehouses since the '90s. I remember that. Yes, the first
Yeah.
time I worked at an insurance company at the time, and we should build a data warehouse. It scared management. I remember that. It was an ambitious idea. He said we're going to solve a lot of problems if we build a data warehouse,
Yeah.
and IBM Global Services at the time. I remember that. They came in and say, hey, we're going to build you a data warehouse. Uh, cool. How much? Millions. And people, oh, no, no, no. Let's not even go there.
All right.
So how did it evolve? I mean, how the
Yeah.
knowledge around data warehouses came to be? I mean, who are the people that created this idea? How long has it been around?
Yeah. We kind of uh, went through this transition, I guess, or evolution together in our careers. Um, there's basically two, I guess, founding thought leaders in this field, Bill Inman and Ralph Kimball, and they have different techniques on how they believe data warehouses should be built. But regardless of which technique you subscribe to, that at the end of the day, we're trying to create a data structure that represents a business. We call it a star schema, and I'm just going to briefly talk about this for a minute because it's important not only to understand the history of this whole evolution, but also to understand this is not a technology thing. This is a business thing. These structures are built to support a business. So let's just talk about two very simple concepts: an event and the description of an event. Okay, whenever you have a sales is an easy one to understand. So if you have a sales team and someone closes a deal, right? They make a sale, whether it's a point of sale or a business-to-business transaction, whatever it is. You make a sale. That's an event that happens, and we call that a fact. The fact is that Jane Doe sold this product to this customer at this time, and it cost X amount. So that would be a measure. So we have an event that occurred in the business, and we can measure that event. We can also describe that event. We know who bought the product. We know what they bought. We know when they bought, right? We can describe that event. So this concept of thinking about what happens in a business as events and descriptions of those events you don't have to have any knowledge of data warehousing. It's just kind of common sense in a way, right? That's what happens in a business is events occur. We try to measure and describe and understand those events. So with that foundation, you naturally want to organize your data in that way. Now, there's technical reasons as well for why this is a good way to organize data, but forgetting about the technical advantages of it, if you organize your data into events, we call them facts, and descriptions of those events, we call those dimensions, it creates what we call a star schema. And those star schemas can be organized in such a way where they work together. For example, if we have customers in our sales star schema, data mart, we can also have customers in our operations data mart. And therefore, naturally, we can, when we're talking about customers, it's one list of customers. It's the same list in our sales mart as it is in our operations mart, as it is in our marketing mart. That is always going to be the same customer. This is fundamentally different from what you will typically see in an operational data store, where you're building point solutions and often replicating the same data over and over again, where you end up having these differences across the different point solutions. So, Alex, I mean, I can go on and on here, but that's another thing that's different about a data warehouse is it's built in a way that is more business oriented, business intelligence. It's more business oriented, in my opinion. That's the driver, maybe is the right way to say it, as opposed to the technology. How do we organize data in such a way that it actually represents an organization, and the people that need access to that data can actually understand what we call the model? They can inherently understand the model because it's named and organized in a way that actually reflects the way that business operates.
That's exactly right. It speaks the language of the business and not the other way around. People are not expected to go there and say, "Oh, that column with characters and numbers in it represent the client."
Yes.
You will use the language that is natural to the business. But more importantly, you mentioned something interesting. It's a collection of um, sub areas of the business. It could be production, it could be sales and distribution, it could be marketing, it could be HR. And as you travel across those, you're going to carry those things that are common across them. If you have a client in marketing, it needs to be the client in sales, it needs to be the client in finance. And that's an enormous advantage for people that sit at the top and need to look at the business in more broad ways.
Right.
Um, but it may sound daunting too. I mean, is it even feasible, right? The bigger the business and the more complex the business model uh, is it fair to say it's going to take that much more effort to exhaust the business and represent it effectively in a data warehouse?
Well, I don't think it really has to take any more effort than, say, an operational data store. It really is about how you approach this. We talked about the ability to expand a data warehouse for it to grow with your business. So, if you compare and contrast with an operational data store, yeah, I can go build a point solution to solve that one problem. Or I can build a data warehouse that's built with these design techniques in place that allow us to extend that warehouse. Is that going to be more difficult? I like most things, it depends, right? We can talk about how we do it at Leapfrog BI and our tooling that helps us accelerate things. But, I would say marginally, yeah, it's more difficult maybe than an operational data store because it does require specific knowledge to understand how to design. It's really the design and architecture piece that makes a difference. You're going to build something. I don't know that it's going to be that much different in development time. If you compare apples to apples on building a point solution versus building, the beginnings of a data warehouse. The other thing I'd say is that it's not like you go or I don't think we should go and say, let's build a data warehouse that's all encompassing for this organization. It's the same as if you're doing a staging approach or an operational data store. Let's pick the points of value. Where do we know we can actually add value quickly? If that is going to be, helping the accounting team operate more efficiently, if that's where we're going, we're great. Let's go build that piece of the warehouse. We would call that a data mart, and now we've got that one in place, right? And then let's pick the next point of value, and if that's served by what we've already built, then great. If we need to extend that, then great, because we have a plan. Years ago, I did a video about the top 3 mistakes when it comes to building data warehouses. And one of those is the failure to plan for change. We've talked about this a little bit, I think, as well in this series. But that's one thing you have to be able to do if you're building a warehouse is you've got to plan for change. You are going to have changes in your source systems. You are going to have changes in your business needs. And if you're building a data structure, especially a data warehouse, that you're unable to manage change in, that thing will be just like an operational data store, and you'll be throwing the thing away and starting over before you know it.
So let me challenge you there a little bit. It does make sense. Let's always plan for change, but change is the unknown. So how do you plan for the unknown? And maybe you can give me an idea of what techniques help you deal with what you don't know is going to be.
Yeah. Well, it's such a big question. I'm just, I'll just give a couple of examples as how do you plan for change? Number one, you have a persistent staging area if you're going to have a data warehouse. A persistent staging area is the unaltered data coming in from your source before you apply business rules or transform it to load or target model. What that means is by having that persistent staging area, I've decoupled my dependency from the data source. That data source can do whatever it wants. And I can completely recreate the downstream model with no problem at all, which means if the business says or originally tells us, hey, this is what I need, team, I need this, I know I need this, but they also can't see into the future. They don't know what they're going to need next month or next quarter. So as a, basically a technical resource, we have to take that unknown into consideration and build things in a way that when they do come back with that need, we're able to say, no problem, PSA's in place in this example. I can load straight from PSA, completely support that requirement with little or no rework. That's just one
That sounds
example.
clever. Yeah.
The other thing is the actual techniques. We're a bottom up Kimball based. We follow the Kimball method of warehousing. Basically, Ralph Kimball put the methods in place. They've been in place for years. They're proven, well tested, and that's the way we do business. When you do that, I know this isn't a technical podcast, but you end up with this bus architecture, and you can just think about it like any bus, like a bus in your electrical system. You can plug things into the bus, and as soon as you do, they can communicate with other things in the bus. So by taking this bus architecture approach, which involves conformed dimensions, like we talked about customers, one list of customers, you solve a lot of problems. And you also make things so that you can operate a lot more efficiently. One thing about this method of thinking about data structures in facts and dimensions is it doesn't matter if you're using Snowflake or Redshift or any of the cloud data warehouses or infrastructure as a service or any of that stuff. Every one of those solutions are going to end up in a star schema, which is facts and dimensions, in most cases. In fact, if you look at any of the BI front-end tools like Tableau and Power BI, they often work best whenever they're fed star schemas. And this is not a new thing. Like people talk about modern data warehouses, they're talking about technology. They're not talking about business. When it comes to the way that we present data, which is what matters, in my opinion, that star schema has stood the test of time. And if you're going to end up in a star schema, why not persist your data in a star schema? And if you're going to persist your data in a star schema, I'm going backwards through this process now, well, then that has a number of things that need to be in place in order to make that resilient, extensible, and so on.
So basically, if I unplug my system of record and put another one, as we put the new system of record in place, I can work with that new vendor or system and fit that into my existing PSA, persistent staging area. Is that correct?
I'd say yes. Generally speaking, it would technically be a new persistent staging area because we wouldn't want to corrupt the legacy system of records persistent staging area. But in that scenario, you now have two sources of data. One's the legacy, one's the new system. In that case, maybe there's some overlap. There's all kinds of things going on there. But in that scenario, we would take that second source and load the same target model. Right, from the business's perspective, it's still a list of customers, whether it's coming from NetSuite or it's coming from whatever, Oracle ERP or whatever, right? It doesn't really matter. It's a list of customers.
Right.
And what we're trying to do with data warehousing is get rid of all that junk, basically. The business should not have to be concerned about which source system did this customer originate in. What are the nuances of how that source system functions? No, they need a list of customers. They need the name, they need the last name, they need the address, the email, the phone number. They need that list of customers. And that's what we're trying to give them without having to, again, deal with all of the technical and source system behavioral issues.
That's so important. Talking to business people all my work life, my career, and that comes from that system, that comes from the other system, and we know there is that shouldn't even be part of the conversation. It should be
Right.
we're just talking about the facts, no pun intended, but we just want the numbers. We just want the evidence here. I should not even think that we have a new ERP or a new accounting system whenever I need to make decisions. The data should just be there. And data warehouses are clearly the best and the most established way of going about gathering the data. You did mention something that I think is really important. A data warehouse is not a one monolith. People in technology like to use that term, a monolith. It lends itself really well to modular designs. right? I mean, you can be incremental about it. Isn't that true?
Yeah, there's so much there. I think regardless of which technique you use to build data warehouses, that modular ability, ultimately the ability to scale as your business changes and you need to extend the warehouse is core to the whole building process, the techniques that go into building these systems. At Leapfrog BI, we have a data warehouse automation platform, which takes that kind of to another level. And there's others in the market, like Time Extender is one, Warescape Red. But the most time-consuming and frankly repetitive process or repetitive task involved with building these solutions is building the solution, right? You're taking hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of data elements from these, one, two, three, a dozen source systems, and you're building data flows. You're actually moving data between the source system and that target model. And you can imagine the cascading array of dependencies is what I call it, of how, A has to happen before B happens to happen before C, and then this can happen in parallel with this, right? So it's kind of a orchestration that has to happen in order to make all of that function. So what we do in our data warehouse automation platform is we componentize all of that. We say that here's a unit of work. We want to be able to take this unit of work and modify it without impacting the upstream or downstream processes that are involved. So we want to be able to pull that thing out as a component, just like you're changing the starter on your car, and put the new one in. And as long as the schemas are the same, downstream dependencies are in place, then we would be able to plug that guy back in. And this componentized approach provides us another level of flexibility. We're probably going to have another episode on technical data warehousing, principles here. But if you think about that componentized approach, that's something that I think is so important to data warehousing when it comes to how you build the thing. It doesn't matter so much to the end user because you're going to give the end user what they need. It matters to the budget because you need to be able to do things efficiently. It matters to your ability to change because, again, if someone comes to you and says, hey, I need to change something, and your answer is, that's going to take me 6 weeks, well, now the data warehouse is a lot less valuable. If the data warehouse can't keep pace with the business, you're losing a lot of the value of the data warehouse. You need to be able to move as quickly as the business is moving, or as close as possible. So that's a really important concept. Another important concept is standardization. Again, different from an operational data store, which is basically, I call it the Wild West of data structures. You can do whatever you want over there. Build 10 different point solutions that have nothing to do with one another, share some data, do whatever you want. That's an operational data store. But a data warehouse must be following standard principles. Whatever your organization is doing to build that warehouse, it has to follow standards. When you follow standards, then when I'm loading the customer dimension and I look at that data flow, I'm using a certain design pattern to do it. That should be the same design pattern as when I'm loading my location dimension or I'm loading my product dimension. And when you do that, the whole team involved with this can operate a lot more efficiently.
Including the business, including the people there.
Oh, absolutely, because the business is going to be involved with validation, especially the people that are directly working with the team building the warehouse. They're going to have to understand this as well. So standards are also another really, really important concept.
Okay. So should it be built all in one? Like we have needs in HR, we have needs in finance, we have needs in sales and marketing. Should it all be built in one big effort? Can we do one at a time?
Definitely one at a time. I don't think, I think if there's anything everybody agrees on, we should be able to do this in an agile way. It's basically what everybody wants to say. It needs to be done in an agile way. Build based on the priorities and the value that we're given, that the business is going to receive. That's basically what I say. One at a time, understand it, do it well, Don't go halfway. Do it well. It doesn't have to be large. I mean, we're talking about iterations, Alex. Sometimes we'll build in 2 days, right? This is not 6 months like whenever we started data warehousing, where,
Sure.
back in the day, it would take us 6 months to get from A to B. We're using much superior tools, well-established techniques, and we can often do things in days instead of weeks or months.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned agile. We talk a lot about that. It's a way of organizing work, but more than that, is a way of delivering fast, so that the business, the people that will actually use the solution, can very quickly get a sense of direction and where it's going, and course correct us if we need and typically we will. Make any changes to the solution,
Yeah.
so we're able to compress time, and I think that's absolutely critical for people in business. The To get a quick sense of progress and achievement, as opposed to well, we're going to drag this for months, and you go about your complicated lives as you always did while we are here experimenting
Right.
with this. It's very
Come back in
different
6
today.
months and
Very
tell us we're wrong, right?
right. Very quickly, we can have reports done in matters of days and weeks, which I think is a great topic for us to approach the next time we meet. Which is, what are the ways to super accelerate data warehouse, the creation, the building of one, and where is it? Where is it going next? In technology, we never stop. I mean, as much as we agree their warehouses are well established and can be incredibly valuable. Uh, Technologists are always looking for the next frontier. Where can I go next with this? So I think that would be an interesting topic to talk next. What do you think, Paul?
I think that's a great thing to talk about, and we need to also talk about. We shouldn't be scared of data warehouses, right? Sometimes when you just say the word data warehouse, it's like we said before. Oh my God, I'm not going down that road. That's a long road, right? That's not the way it works today, or it shouldn't work that way anymore. It's a very achievable thing, even for the smallest of organizations. We do it every day of the week. So, if you and the value that they can offer when done right is enormous. The other thing I want to say is that, we use different words through time, but like even business intelligence, right? It wasn't always called business intelligence. Things have changed, and we're going to rename things, and new products come out, and vendors have to sell new products. They have to have new features, and all these technical things are going on. At the end of the day, what's never going to change is that your business is going to take actions, or they're going to have events that occur, and you're going to need to understand those events. You're going to need to be able to say, where am I being successful? Where am I being unsuccessful? How can I understand the environment I'm operating in so that I can actually make decisions in the future that make me more successful? That's fundamental to business. And what we're doing with data warehousing is trying to create an ecosystem. We call it a data architecture that supports that type of thought process. The other part of this is useless unless you have people that are willing to be data-driven, that are willing to use that resource to assist them in making those decisions, informed decisions, on a day-to-day basis. Not just the highest executives in the organization, though that's important, but sometimes these are just as valuable as tactical resources on these ongoing business processes that maybe could operate more efficiently and even add more value than some of the more high-level decisions.
All right. So change is inevitable, but businesses are going to stay here forever, and it's safe to assume we're going to be looking at reports for long after we're gone from the land. Isn't that
That's right.
true?
Until AI takes over, right? And we don't even have to worry about any of it. We'll just say, okay, you go solve this problem for me and tell me when I'm done.
All right. You can explain to me how you think that will happen, but that's for another time. Thanks
Yeah.
again for watching. We'll see you next time, and we're going to continue to talk about data warehouses.
All right. Take care.
Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a comment below. Stay tuned to our next episode as we continue our discussion about data warehouses.